All right, welcome back, everyone, to Animation Fascination, episode 107. And yes, it is me, Mark, of Earth 1986. We are back this week, and if you can't already tell, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. How are you doing, Stanford?
I'm great. How are you?
You know, just web slinging.
Just doing your spider stuff, you know?
Yeah. Let's get our special guest in here this week, another Spider fan who's been on Hold a Maneuver, but here he is.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Michael. Welcome to Animation Fascination.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And then if you guys haven't listened to the show before, this podcast focuses on the world of animation. In each episode, we feature all the latest news from around the animation industry and a main topic discussing a TV series, film, or something else. Whether it's traditionally hand-drawn, computer-generated, or stop motion, if it's animated, it is up for discussion to geek out about. So yeah, like we set up at the beginning of the episode, we are going to be talking about Across the Spider-Verse this week, with all the different Spider-Men and Spider-Cats and Spider-Dogs and Spider-Dinosaurs.
Spider-Dinosaurs.
But yeah, just before we get into our discussion on the movie itself, we just have a few bits of news that we're gonna talk about this week. So Annecy happened just recently this week over in France, and some of the news we're going to talk about comes from there. So the first is Guillermo del Toro and Jorge R. Gutierrez are leading the Mexican animation tribute at Annecy this year. Guillermo del Toro obviously just did the Oscar-winning Pinocchio film that came out last year. Jorge R. Gutierrez, he did The Book of Life as far as one of the more recent features that he did, which I thought was very good. He's a good follow on Twitter too. If you don't follow him too, he's always posting very interesting, at least as far as photos in relation to context of, and then it just says Hollywood next to it, and it'll usually just be like a dumpster fire or something else. So he's very kind of outspoken on what he thinks about different aspects of the film and television industry out there. So he's definitely a good follow there if you haven't checked him out. But they're two of the more prolific Mexican heritage animation directors and filmmakers. So they introduced that this year. So it was pretty cool. They had more than 250 Mexican animators and producers descended on Annecy, with 9 programs scheduled for that. He also Jorge R. Gutierrez also does the Netflix series Maya and the Three. It's won 4 Emmys for that and an Annie. Now, have you guys checked any of that out, or what do you think about that?
I have not, but I'm writing it down so I remember.
Yeah. If you liked Book of Life, the animation style
it's very similar, isn't it?
Yeah, Maya and the Three is very similar to that. So if you enjoyed that, you'll definitely enjoy that series as well too. But yeah, it's pretty cool. There, especially with Guillermo del Toro. Last week at the Fan Fusion panel, it was kind of based around his quote of animation is cinema and all of that. So it's good to see him pushing that even more forward with different filmmakers as well too. So to segue from that, I will hand it off to Stanford, who has another bit of news.
So from just you're saying, Mark, at the Annecy Film Festival during the opening ceremony, some folks from Walt Disney Animation Studios were there, and they showed a brand new animated short that is going to be put in front of Disney Animation's upcoming film Wish this Thanksgiving. This short is called Once Upon a Studio, and it celebrates the 100th anniversary of Walt Disney Company, which is going on, of course, this year. And the plot, as reported, is it's Mickey Mouse trying to get together as many different Disney characters for a group photo in front of the Roy E. Disney Animation Building. It's the quote unquote hat building there on the Burbank lot. And what it's saying is the short's about 9 minutes long, features over 400 characters. And the characters are a combination of hand-drawn, CG animation, and live action. And of course, you probably can expect a lot of mayhem, right, and comedy and whatnot. It sounds like a fun idea and a cool way to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Disney Studios. So 40 voice actors were brought in for the short. One of them was Josh Gad, who is, he tweeted about it, confirmed that Olaf is going to be in the short. And also, I'll just read his quote because it's pretty cool. Josh said on Twitter, "So excited to finally have the world see what Disney Animation has created to celebrate the incredible 100-year legacy of the studio. I nearly cried when I was told that Olaf would appear alongside the genie, utilizing previously unheard audio from IL Robin Williams." So that sounds pretty cool, I think. And then also, the short includes a cameo that features Bernie Mattison, who recently died. But he was there for 70 years, longest running employee of the studio. Once Upon a Studio is directed by Dan Abraham and Trent Corey, and then Eric Goldberg supervised the hand-drawn animation for it, and Andrew Feliciano supervised the CG animation for it. So anyway, as I mentioned, it's going to be playing in front of Wish, and maybe if Wish isn't great, this short sounds like it's going to be great. So we'll see. But I'm stoked about it.
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool. I saw that he also had to post, Josh Gad also had a post that he's like, obviously the estate of Robin Williams okayed them using the audio for it.
Yeah,
I know like Robin Williams was actually specifically one of the actors that had like a clause in, like, I believe either in his will or like in contracts that like they couldn't like Tupac hologram him into stuff.
Yeah.
Similar to like how like Christopher Reeves had like been like in a commercial post his death, like walking around and stuff. So basically he kind of had something like in his like contracts and stuff that like you couldn't do that. So I guess at least with this, it's at least like unused genie dialogue. That's also probably the unused genie dialogue that's still family friendly.
Right.
That can be used for it. That like his wife and his daughter Zelda.
Okay, cool.
Probably okayed it. But yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Like, what do you think about that, Michael?
I think that's really interesting, and I was a little intrigued by the fact that they use unused audio from him, but the fact that his estate did clear it, I guess makes me fine with it, because if his family's fine with it, then what right do I really have to be upset with it, I guess? But I think that's really cool, and it's a really interesting way to bring Genie back.
Definitely. And I think they said the short was going to be like 9 minutes or something.
Yeah,
like
9
that.
minutes is what was reported. Yeah.
So it should be interesting to see how restless little kids get that are going to see Wish. But
that's true. Or maybe they'll hopefully they'll be so entranced, right? I guess we'll see.
But going from there, the next bit of news that we had, still speaking on Disney a little bit, and content that would be on Disney Plus or possibly not. So like recently, like in not the last episode, but the episode before that, kind of talked about like Willow Mighty Ducks Game Changers, among a whole bunch of other like Disney Plus original content, world according to Jeff Goldblum. But basically, a lot of stuff that was like added on there like the same day Disney Plus launched.
Yeah, in 2019, right?
Yeah, basically anything that wasn't Star Wars content or Marvel Studios content was more or less removed off of there around May 31st or so. They also took some stuff off of Hulu there as well too. So like shows like Future Man, The Runaways, and a few others were taken off of that too. And then it was just basically recently, or people were able to see that they were able to get a 1.5 billion content write-off charge in June after pulling all of that stuff off of the streaming service. So, yay! The like what I said last time with this, the thing that like kind of sucks about that is that now it's just like purely not available whatsoever. Whereas, like when they would put stuff in the Disney Vault, you'd at least have like whatever period of time it may be to go out, grab whatever that movie or TV show was, add it to your collection, and then when it did get put in the vault, all right, at least if you wanted the movie bad enough, or if like you really had to have it, you were able to have that period of time that you were able to go out, buy Aladdin or whatever, and then put it on your shelf. Whereas like if you really liked the TV series for Willow or the Mighty Ducks Game Changers on there, and you want to go and watch it again right now, you're gonna have to find less than I guess maybe some, you know, like where Vanellope kind of ended up in different parts of Ralph Breaks the Internet. You're gonna have
dark web.
Yeah, you're gonna have to like show up in those spots of the internet to try to find some of these shows. Like where like Willow wasn't even on there for 6 months. I had like 2 episodes left to watch when it got removed off of there because I mean I wasn't able to watch it right away when it got released. So that's the thing too with like a lot of, at least for me, with a lot of the Star Wars shows or like the Marvel shows that are on there, that I'd like to have them on my shelf so that like I don't have to rely on an internet connection to be able to watch them if I want to, or should they edit it for whatever reason. That was like a whole big thing this past week with the film The French Connection on the Criterion channel streaming service, as well as I think it was on Hulu possibly, where they like edited part of the film. And then like now if you go try to find the Blu-ray on Amazon, it's out of stock just because everybody bought that up after that so they could watch the original unedited version of the movie. So I think with stuff like this, it just shows like a lot more importance to physical media. I know like not everybody is for physical media, not everybody has space for physical media, but it may end up becoming more of like at least kind of like a boutique or like niche market, like with the way that like Mondo or like Criterion or like Arrow Film, like they do like those really nice kind of sets for like Blu-rays or DVDs of movies or 4K releases. I think that'll probably end up being like that same way in the future for some of this stuff. But I also have seen that there's possibly going to be like another 20 or so more shows that get taken off of Disney Plus that they filed for that, which seems counterintuitive too, because then that makes your streaming service less desirable because it has less things to watch on it at that point. So it feels like that makes it not as much of as like a thing that people would want to have because there's not as, you know what I mean? So what do you guys think about that? I'll go with Michael first and then Stanford.
I hate it. It's, yeah, like you've said, there's just going to be no legal way to watch these things in the future. And it's really disappointing, especially because these were original programs and movies that were made for these services. And if you take those off, they're not going to be in syndication anywhere because they're legally not allowed to make any money off of them anymore because they took those tax breaks. And yeah, it's removing stuff that dozens or hundreds of people worked on, and their work is now just gone, and there's nowhere for anyone to go and watch it unless they really, really want to find it somewhere.
Yeah. How about you, Stanford?
Well, it's not good, you know, and I think part of it why I don't feel as good because it's just made a lot of my friends really mad. I'm not necessarily. I'm not happy about it. Frankly, like I'm never gonna go out and watch another episode of The World of Coding according to Jeff Goldblum or whatever, you know. But still, others might want to, you know. I know one of my friends in particular was super pissed that Timmy Failure, mistakes were making, or mistakes were made, if that's the proper title, is gone and maybe never to be seen again.
Yeah.
But I also think, I mean, and I guess the main thing that I'm mad most about at Disney is that they didn't just communicate it better. I mean, they said that they were going to pull some stuff off, and then it was the internet that spread it all, rather than someone at Disney like and then maybe they didn't feel they needed to or that they didn't want to, but to put out a list and also say what the future is. Like, is there an opportunity to, if someone really wants to watch Timmy Failure again in the future, will it be put on the surface again? Are they going to make it available for rent or to buy? They're going to put it out on, on YouTube or something where you can rent or buy it. I found a lot of these vintage Disney movies that I've been watching for my Disney Watch project this year. You can rent them on YouTube for $4, and you can also buy them if you want an electronic copy. But again, as you've said so eloquently, Mark, you're leasing.
Long-term leasing.
It's a long-term lease.
Buy a digital copy.
Yeah, when you're doing that. So, but being able to rent it and being able to watch it again, for $4 is not the best, but it's not the worst either if you're really trying to find it. But anyway, I'm going on and on too long probably about this. But just one other point though is that it's sure not breeding goodwill. At a time when Disney, I think, could use some good press. I think it's made people more angry than anything. Yeah,
and the one other thing related with this before we move on to the next thing is that this is part of more or less it's not the defining reason because AI is part of that too, but it's one of the sticking points of the writer's strike going on right now.
Yeah, really good point. Yeah,
and we've kind of been making fun of the name change for HBO Max, but the whole reason they did the name change for that, at least there's kind of, I don't want to report it as fact, but there's some hearsay going around that the whole reason that the name change for it was that HBO Max was considered a cable network. So when stuff aired on that or people played stuff on that, there would be royalties and residuals paid for stuff on that. Whereas Max is just considered a straight streaming service. So anytime those same shows play on that, those same royalties or residuals aren't paid out because it's now considered a streaming service rather than a network. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And that also seems maybe why the actual word HBO was taken out of it too. So it's this whole entire thing. And it's still weird to even call it Max because that's a weird name.
It's a dumb name. Yeah, it is. It's just
that's I saw someone say it was taking taking the if you did that with say Pixar Animation Studios and you just dropped the word Pixar from it and just had it called Animation Studios, it would be kind of be that same kind of thing.
Meaningless.
But, yeah. So I don't know.
I guess it's a reality, right?
But, yeah, and they kind of speaking of HBO Max, like they're kind of the ones that like started this whole thing too. With like Zaslav did it first.
Yeah.
With like we had the Batgirl film.
Right.
That unless you work at Warner Brothers or somewhere on the lot, we'll never see that movie. And then like all of the animated TV series on there. But the only difference with them is that at least some of their original content you can purchase digital, well, long-term lease digital copies of on like iTunes, or like they did do some DVD releases for like if you really want to watch An American Pickle, you can go buy the DVD for that, or the digital copy of it. So
well,
there's at least opportunities, and they're there if you want to watch them.
Yeah. Just one more thing, and I'm not trying to defend Disney Plus, but I was happy that they put some additional movies on that were not necessarily Disney. Aren't all the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies now on Disney Plus?
Yeah, that is part of like that.
I mean, it's part of Marvel Studios has got a finger in there, but it's Sony, right? And then
I know they had signed like a deal with Sony. I don't remember. I think it was like last year or something like that, where like some of the other countries were getting those films first, just because like with how all the studio stuff works with different countries and whatnot. But I think by the end of this month or by the end of July, all of that stuff should be on there outside of No Way Home, because I think that still has like a period of time.
Has a period of time, right? Where it's
it's like that weird stuff, like again, where like certain deals were signed into place with Fox before Disney bought us. So that's why like The Way of Water's on Max right now and Disney Plus. So if you have either or, you could watch it in either place right now
from a previous contract. And also, I mean, I know Lucasfilm, of course, is in the Disney family, but I think it's cool that all 4 Indiana Jones movies are on Disney Plus right now,
and the Young Indiana Jones Adventures.
Which is kind of rare, right? I mean, that's not. Anyway, but still.
Yeah. So I mean, there's pluses and minuses to it, especially because like the Young Indiana Jones Adventures, the DVDs for those have been like out of print for years and years now.
So
I doubt we'll ever get a Blu-ray release now of them, but maybe through Disney Movie Club, because like that's how a lot of how I had to get like the Mighty Ducks trilogy, which is, I'm not going to go on a whole tangent, but which is weird that Heavyweights got a specific Blu-ray release from the same creative team with that, had all these good bonus features on there, but like the film that they had a NHL team that they owned for years with the same name on it, they just stuck as like a Disney Movie Club exclusive kind of Blu-ray on there, like bare bones Blu-rays, like just the movie, no commentaries with anybody, which it could have been at least the Stephen Brill that they had on the Heavyweights one too. So I don't know. But which they did just release yesterday. They did a good documentary on Once Upon a Time in Anaheim, which is like the whole story of the Mighty Ducks real life hockey team and how that came to fruition. And they even got Michael Eisner back for that documentary that ESPN did. So that's on ESPN Plus right now. That's not technically my recommendation, but it is kind of my recommendation too. And they got Sean Weiss in there is doing some like talking heads in there. Margaret Moreau is in there talking about the films too. So it's interesting. Although they did use some like B-roll shots in there where it says 1993 Disneyland, and it's a POV shot from the Incredicoaster, which that was a parking lot in 1993.
Parking lot still in 93.
And it was like, at least if you're gonna do that, at least make it like California Screaming. But no, it's like current day DCA. So the next thing from there, I will hand off to Michael for this next news segment.
All right. This next piece of news is pretty exciting. Reportedly, The Legend of Zelda is being adapted for the big screen. So Hollywood insider Jeff Snyder is reporting that Universal Pictures is close to closing a deal with Nintendo to have Illumination create a new animated film for The Legend of Zelda, and they of course did the Super Mario Brothers movie, which did okay, you know, making $1 billion worldwide.
$1 billion.
Yeah, and because of the success of that one, supposedly it's going to cost Universal a pretty penny, but I'm sure that they are going to be willing to pay it because I feel like outside of Mario, The Legend of Zelda definitely has the biggest franchise potential. Because there's over 20 games in that video game franchise, and there's like a whole weird thing with the canon and like different timelines. But yeah, there's a lot of potential for endless things to be made with that. Like what starting point they choose, whether that's like the new Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom games that are really successful, or they go a different route with one of the other like dozen storylines and styles. Yeah, that's surely going to be something massive for Universal. But what do you guys think about that?
We have a Animation Fascination exclusive. Chris Pratt will be the voice of Link in the game, as well as Zelda. So, no, I'm just joking.
Nice.
But yeah, I think this could be a really cool film. Like depending on what they do for like the visual like styling of it too. If they try to go like somewhat like different. Maybe like more like in the vein of like Paperman, like that, or like what we've kind of, because that kind of is kind of like the style that like the more recent games have been, is kind of like that, not to be confused with like the young paper like cutout looking Link style, but I definitely think they could do like a cool like action adventure like film with that, or like maybe like in the same tone as like the recent like Dungeons and Dragons movie. You could maybe do it like that too. So yeah, there definitely is plenty of opportunities there for it, and I know at least one of my cousins will be super excited for that, because the way that he proposed to his wife was like he basically modded the original Legend of Zelda game for it's like it's unsafe to go alone, take this, and then he changed it so it said that his wife's name, will you marry me, in it, and it hands her a ring in there. So I'm sure that they will be excited about. What do you think, Stanford?
Well, I think it's a no-brainer, you know, particularly with kind of this great relationship going on now with Nintendo and Universal, and then just the success of the Super Mario Brothers movie. I think what's going to really be tricky is making the Zelda fans happy with the film. I sure would want to be on the project. I mean, it's got such a devoted fan base, you know. So many people are so passionate about it, and I think that the game developers are doing a pretty good job. It sounds like I haven't played this new one, but it sounds like it's fantastic, right? I don't know if either of you guys have played it yet, but anyway, good for them, and I hope that you know. I wish them success and happiness, and as well as it's going to work out for the fans too. Definitely. Whenever it comes to be.
Yeah, so we'll definitely keep checking that out and see what may come from that. And then the last bit of news before we get into the trailers, and another news bit related to Annecy, is Sony unveiled a first look at a Spider-Verse short film, which is tackling mental health issues and showing Miles Morales suffering an anxiety crisis, which I think this is really cool that mental health is becoming more and more of like a highlighted thing throughout like popular media, whether that's like through shows that I know the three of us like Ted Lasso, or like Shrinking, or there's a lot more shows that are basically taking on and speaking on mental health. Like, even we'll get into it later, but like I like that Miles even brings up like a line in Across the Spider-Verse. He's like, men of your age don't usually take care of their mental health. it should be. We need to talk about it. So I liked that in there too, and I liked that. Like it was a joke, but it was also being serious about it too. So I liked how that was handled in there. So this, I'm looking forward. I'm almost kind of bummed that they didn't release this as like a short in front of Across the Spider-Verse. I almost wonder if because I'm not seeing because it did debut there today, but I'm not seeing like any details of like a wider release. I think it could be something where it's like either like on like the physical like Blu-ray or 4K set that comes out like later this year, or maybe they put it as like a short film in front of Beyond the Spider-Verse. I think either of those could work. It could be interesting to do that. What do you guys think about this? Because they didn't really release any other details other than like in like a post-pandemic world, which is kind of still weird phrasing because I don't really think it's technically post-pandemic yet. A lot of people want to think it's post-pandemic, but with like how much more mental health has become like a highlighted topic throughout different like popular media. Go with Stanford and then Michael.
I think that anytime they want to do an animated short with this IP, yes, please. Just like they could crank one out once a month, and I'd be thrilled. And so I'm with you, Mark. Who knows how they're going to release it, if they have a strategy or what? But if at least there's one, and I'm glad that they're tackling important issues, and let's just have more of that incredible animation style. I'm all for it.
How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I think it's great. Besides just being on the same page as Stanford, just wanting to see as much of this animation style as often as possible. I think it's a great topic, especially because now, kids are going through a whole lot. Mental health is, like you said, a huge thing that's touched upon now. And so on top of the struggles that Peter Parker had, Miles is going through all that. And it's not a surprise that, a 15-year-old experiencing all this would be facing a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
And, being able to, whether it's like diagnose or self-diagnose, whatever it is, having that be such a focus of, trying to balance his school and his personal life and everything.
Yeah, and like they kind of touch on that a little bit in the movie too. I think a little, but just with like how like it kind of seems like he's like dealing with trying to find his friends there too. But again, like it just from like the photo that they released from this, it looks like a very coolly lit kind of film on here, and it kind of gives me like the vibe of like they didn't really like put a hat on it in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2, but he's kind of dealing with similar kind of issues in that movie. So
yeah,
it's I mean, Spider-Man could be used as a character to kind of highlight like mental health issues and like stuff like that. So I think doing it with this is definitely a good way to go about it. And I'm excited to see what other things they can do with this, because I liked how they did the like Spider-Ham short on the Blu-ray when the first movie came out. So like Stanford was saying, I think they could do this thing where they, even if they wanted to, they could just do like a whole bunch of like shorts where it's just like the different spider characters from the different universes. Like they kind of do that in the movies where it's like this tiny little contained short film. It's like, where they're like, all right, let's do this one last time. But you could make like a bunch of like 5 to 10 minute short films that are just about specific characters and like giving them backstory through like Spider-Woman or whoever, like Spider-Punk, whatever else, if you wanted to do that. I think that could be like a cool experiment. And just because all of them kind of have like their own animation style too, that would be like another way to kind of experiment with like how to animate all of these different characters in those different like visual representations that I think could be like a cool thing to check out. But that will do it for our news stories. And the next bit of news that we have is going to be trailers that we're going to be talking about. So we'll get into those now. I will bring this up really quick. Now, so the next thing is for Justice League WARWORLD. Say that 5 times fast. I had a slow it way down so that I knew that I didn't mess it up there. But have you guys seen any of the like the new continuity of like the DC animated films that they've been doing over like the past year or so?
I'm not.
No, not with the new continuity.
Other than Mark, I mean, you know, I feel a little informed because you teach me, you talk about them, but no, I am not.
So the one that kind of like restarted it off was it was a Superman animated film. I want to make sure that I get that Darren Criss was the voice of Superman and Clark Kent in that for.
Oh yeah, see, and actually, I think
Superman, Man of Tomorrow.
I have seen that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
Well, it took you talking about it to make me remember. So I don't think I don't think it made much of an impression. I don't remember hating it. I don't remember loving it either. Now, did we watch it? Did we review it, Mark? I don't know if we.
I think I did a review of the Blu-ray for it,
and I think that anyway. Did I watch it on, on the streaming service formerly known as HBO Max? I don't know if I did or not. Anyway, I mean it wasn't terrible, but I also don't feel like I'm the one that I shouldn't offer. I shouldn't offer an opinion on it because I'm uninformed.
Worries. So yeah, like with these, I kind of said this to you guys too off mic before we started talking about this, but like another thing that they've been doing with this too is that they've they've been doing like the spines where they try to get the art to match up on the side of them. So, and they've kind of screwed that up a few times already now. So right now I'm gonna play the trailer so you guys can kind of see it here in the background. But I've liked what they've been doing with the animation style on these too, as because they've been doing them in this way, in such a way that it's like this. It's like these thicker like lines on the characters that I think is very interesting how they've been doing that, because they did that with the more like with the first one of like the Darren Criss film there, and they've continued doing that with all of these since then. And what do you guys think about like the animation style for this, just going off of what you can see here on there?
Yeah, I think it looks good.
Yeah, I do too.
The thicker lines was one of the first things I noticed when the trailer started going.
Yeah, like this one also seems like kind of like an Elseworlds type of story too. So like we have like this like Clark Kent that's kind of like on this like noir type planet, and then Wonder Woman's like kind of on this like Savage Lands type of planet, and then Batman looks like he's like almost on like a, what do you call it, like a Mad Max kind of, or almost like a Mortal Kombat type of world. That's at least for like what the cover looks like. They like because they show like the alternate like costumes for some of them, like here on like it's Batman, right? So we had, this is 3 heroes. So they have almost like I believe Jonah Hex is in the one with Wonder Woman too. And then there's like this like this Batman like I don't know. It's just like That's pretty
Gladiator Batman or whatever that. You
Yeah.
know, one thing, Mark, that I think is probably a good move on Warner Brothers too on these. You know, it's rated R. I mean, it's just for a more mature audience, and I think that's smart that they're not just trying to make these all necessary family friendly, and you know, they're not trying to hide it either. It's very obvious. You know, you can make parents can make an informed decision, you know, about these if they're going to show it to their kids, and then hopefully, you know, the adult audiences are going to enjoy it. You know, it's because of what they're looking for. So,
right, yeah, and this seems like it could be like an interesting film that they're putting out. It's supposed to be coming out pretty soon. The exact release date was, let me check that again.
Yeah, did they have a release date on it, Mark? Because that's always a challenge. I found with those Warner Brothers DC releases is that it seems like the release dates sometimes are squishy.
Yeah, with this, it looks like it will. I do not see a date for it. I do like that at the end of a lot of these that they've been like now recommending what comics you should be reading if you're going to check this out. That will kind of go in the same idea or like story path as the movie that you're about to watch. So I like that they've been doing that with those. And then so I think it's coming out in August or July. It doesn't have a date on there, so we'll have to wait to see when that is, whenever that may be for it. So the next one is going to be for the new Ninja Turtles animated film that's going to be coming out, which again I think is partly kind of influenced by what we've already seen, like with Across Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse, where it's like this more like visual kind of style to it. And one of the things that I saw first, hold on, I want to wait for the joke real quick.
That's it.
Look, we're really sorry, Tina. Some of the guys wanted to get pizza, and I tried to talk them out of it. You ratted us out. Hey,
Don't use that word that way.
Like I just saw this version of the trailer when I saw Little Mermaid with my wife yesterday, and that joke made me laugh really loud. So before I play the rest of this, like already, like what do you guys think of like the visual style for this new variation of like the Ninja Turtles that's going to be coming out later this year in August?
I think it's perfect for the Ninja Turtles because you know, they had like darker comic book roots, and they took on like a more childish persona with the cartoons and everything. And so even though this is still like very much kid friendly, it takes on that grittiness in like a whimsical way that I think is so refreshing. And even though it's like very much influenced by the Spider-Verse movies, it's still got its own like things on top of that and still make it look unique and not just like a cookie cutter copy of what they did there.
Yeah. How about you, Stanford?
I love it. You know, I remember the first Ninja Turtles movie that came out where they were those puppet things. I mean, you know, like those.
Oh yeah, the Henson.
The you know, actors in costume with these articulated heads, and that sucked. I thought it looked horrible and just stupid, you know. And so something like this, I think, just it's a perfect medium for it. I mean, they're Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
What in the world, you know? But here they you know, it works, and the animation I think looks really appealing. I'm really looking forward to seeing this movie.
Yeah, And we talked about Mighty Ducks Game Changers a little earlier, but Raphael is voiced by. I want to make sure I get the kid's name right. He was the main character on Game Changers. He played Evan on the show, but he's doing the voice of Raphael in this. Hold on. The other thing I thought was funny is that this is the second time that Seth Rogen and Jackie Chan have done a voice in a film together with involving martial arts of some kind. The kid's name is Brady Noon, who played Evan on Mighty Ducks Game Changers. But again, here too, I like that they got like a bunch of like actual teenage kids to do the voices of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go to high school. Maybe get a girlfriend. Can you imagine that? Not like that.
Yeah, I think they've done a really nice job. I read today they showed it at Annecy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like a work in progress.
A work in progress print, and the crowd was very enthusiastic about it. It sounded like, at least that was the report I read. So
nice.
Anyway, good for them. Let's hope it looks very promising.
That makes me feel like he's a rat.
I like the phrasing there too from permanent teenager Seth Rogen.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Also, love like all of the Ninja Turtles like rogues gallery of characters that they have in this too, between like Superfly. Oh yeah, like sequences like this too, where it's like this like nice kind of just like call back to like certain things. It's like, look at this. Is that Keenan?
I think it's Ice Cube.
Oh yeah, that is Ice Cube.
Yeah.
People, they got to go. Okay, sort of a twist.
Yeah, like shots like that with the jumping from the moon, and then like that shot, which is just straight up like the comic book cover.
Yeah,
from, like one of the first issues, which I think is awesome that they did that.
I do too.
6 in the morning, police at my door. My son, Michelangelo, you have heart. Donatello, you have wisdom. Raphael, you have bravery. And Leonardo, honor.
I almost wanted Splinter here to be like, Michelangelo, you like to party. Donatello, you do machines. Raphael, you're cool but crude. Yeah, I like some of these shots. It's like the same way that like Into the Spider-Verse had like every single like frame of that could have been like its own work of like art. It seems like almost every frame of this could also just be like its own like just piece of art that you would just frame that and put it up on your wall.
Yeah.
And that freaking cast.
Yeah, great cast. And it also looks like they just got the tone right. And I think, frankly, too, that animation helps with that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, just to be able to, I mean, not that it needs to be just like the comic book, but that I thought that's what was missing about that puppet version that I was ripping on. I mean, they tried, but I just didn't think that was successful, at least, you know, to my eyes.
Yeah.
But this one looks terrific.
So from there, the next thing that we're going to just talk about really quick before we get into our main review, I'll just give our recommendations really quick. Mine is for a recent thing. Like, if you've probably seen these before on the channel for Wired, like where they answer questions about different stuff from like the internet. Recently, Gennady Tartakovsky did one where he answered animation questions from Twitter. It's like 16 minutes long. It's a really cool video, especially if like you're a fan of animation. There's like these whole sequences about like smooth or fluid animation. There's a small sequence about naked cartoon characters, voice actors, repurposing animation, like principles of animation, kind of like how you make characters blink and like how often you should be doing that, like rigging for animation. Then he talks about Hotel Transylvania for quite a bit. Talks about his Clone Wars micro series, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Dexter's Laboratory, and then just like storyboards and like a few other things. So, like if you're a fan of Gennady Tartakovsky and like some of the other like things that he's done, like whether it's like Samurai Jack or anything that I just kind of named off there, then definitely worth checking out, especially if you're just a fan of animation too, because he does like a good job of breaking down kind of like the different steps and like sequences of like what has to be done within the animation production kind of assembly line. So it's definitely worth checking out. But I will now hand it over to Stanford for his recommendation.
You know, I'm watching 100 Disney movies this year that I picked, 100 of my favorites for the Disney 100 commemoration, which has been a fun movie project for me. And I'm in the 80s right now, the 1980s, and just finished watching Tron, the OG Tron from 1982. And that's such a cool movie. I mean, I've seen it a bunch of times, but I was just reminded how groundbreaking it was at the time, but also just how cool it is. I mean, I know it's not everybody's taste, but I had a blast rewatching it and was just so impressed with the computer animation that they used that was so groundbreaking at the time, and I think it still looks really good. I mean, it's definitely a period piece, but anyway, I had a blast. So yeah, would highly recommend rewatching Tron if you haven't seen it for a while.
And I would recommend to people to check out the episode on prop culture on Disney Plus about Tron. But wait, it's not on Disney Plus
that
anymore.
Was cool.
So you can't watch it. Yeah, that's
gone?
not on there.
Pop culture got pulled.
I didn't watch it. Oh no,
Michael,
I love that show.
You're gonna have to find Vanellope, and she'll show you where on the dark web that you can watch the rest of the episodes.
No.
I'm also bummed because I wish that show got like more seasons and episodes.
They could have kept going.
Yeah, they could have done a special for Disney's 100th anniversary.
That Tron, I mean, every one of those episodes were great.
That was the first thing that actually got Rick Moranis back on screen for something too.
I was gonna say that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids episode was amazing.
Yeah, like even like the Chronicles of Narnia episode is like really good in there too. Like I wanted them to do a Mighty Ducks episode too.
Yes,
stuff like that. There's like all of these episodes. They have so much stuff they could do. Like the Nightmare Before Christmas episode was great on there. The Mary Poppins stuff that it like that
amazing.
I always describe that show as like if you're a fan of like I guess like American Pickers or Pawn Stars, but you wanted them to just be purely Disney related content. That's what prop culture basically is formatted to be, like kind of sort of, but not really. But yeah, prop culture. You can't watch it on Disney Plus, but you can watch it somewhere probably
somewhere, and maybe someday it will come back, but who knows?
Yeah. But then what would you like to recommend, Michael?
I'm going to go in theme with today's episode and say the new season of Clone High on Max.
Nice.
And by that I mean HBO Max. In case you thought I was talking about a person. But yeah, because it's Phil Lord and Chris Miller did the original. And yeah, the new season, I don't think I'm fully caught up with the new season, but I have been watching it and it's been pretty good.
Nice.
Hey,
I have to watch that. I did watch another Lord and Miller show that did have animation in it, because I finally just watched the first season of the After Party, and that was really good. I liked that, and there was a whole animated episode, which I didn't think really helped the whole thing about animation not being a genre, because each episode in that was like a different kind of film genre, and then there was an episode that was animated. I was like, I know that they're not like, but it doesn't help the argument. But the animation style for that was very close to kind of like Clone High, like the same kind of like visual representation for it, and it had some people that you might have heard like their voices in different things. Like specifically, I liked seeing like TSC Car in that as one of the actors. But I did see in season 2 of that there's going to be like a Wes Anderson-esque like episode. So
Nice.
I guess they're kind of moving outside of like the genres and kind of more into like, I guess, vibes of films or stuff, because there's like a film noir in there, one in that season 2, it looks like. But so that's going to do it for our recommendations, and we will now begin our review for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'm going to play a little bit of the trailer, the last trailer that they put out for Across the Spider-Verse, just before we get to talk about it. So here it is.
My name's Miles Morales. I'm Brooklyn's one and only Spider-Man. And things are going great.
Here, any minute.
Should be simple enough.
Give me your money. So are you like a cow or a Dalmatian? Ah, Spider-Man! I am Spot. It's not funny. Don't do that.
There's bubbles now. Hold on.
I don't think I want this costume anymore.
All right, so this week we're going to be talking about Across the Spider-Verse. So for this this one, now before we like really get into, I guess I'll give each of us like a thing to kind of give our overall thoughts for it before we get into the deeper part of the review. So starting with Michael, then Stanford, and then I'll go last here.
I absolutely loved this movie. The first one is one of my all-time favorite movies. I'm a big superhero fan. I do love superhero movies, but the first Spider-Verse is the only superhero movie that's in my top 10 of all time because of how unique and special it is. And I was so happy to see that they were able to somehow catch lightning in the bottle twice with this. Not only with just going 10 times harder with all the different animation styles and being somehow even more visually impressive, but also with the story, and again just creating something that is perfect for Spider-Man and something that, you know, really hasn't been tackled before story-wise for him, at least in a like a story, not story media, but like, you know, like movies or shows. Right. And yeah, it was absolutely incredible. Even though it is kind of a part one, I still felt like it was a pretty good movie on its own, regardless of that. And I am so excited to see where they go with it.
Nice. How about you, Stanford?
You know, next level. I thought the animation was, you know, I just couldn't get enough of it, as we were talking about with, you know, with this short that you mentioned earlier in the news. I thought this movie was, I mean, I just couldn't take my eyes off the screen, and I was so happy too that I've seen it twice now, and both times the projection was excellent. I've heard when there's some issues with like the sound mix. Did you guys read any stories about that? I'm not sure.
I heard about that.
I'm not sure that was going on in the theaters that I saw the movie in. Did you?
I didn't have any issues.
Yeah,
I didn't either.
I didn't either.
I saw in two different theater locations too. So Like
Okay.
there was two different chains even too, so it was
Okay.
they both sounded fine to me. Like the IMAX and the Dolby Atmos both sounded okay.
I was just really taken. I was really taken with it. I've got some questions for you, more just kind of about story structure, which we can talk about in a bit. But I was really wowed by this movie.
Yeah, I was a big fan of this movie too. I loved the first movie.
I did too.
I think it's been long
really
enough
loved
now.
That first movie. Loved it.
Yeah, I think it's been long enough now that like I can say that like my son and I had saw like an early version of that first movie before it came out, and it was just super excited to see like the final version of it when it finally did. Didn't get same thing didn't happen with this one. I had to wait like everybody else for when it came out, and like everybody else, we had to wait like that extra 6 months because I remember this was supposed to come out in like October of last year. And then got pushed.
Yeah, I know that was such a bummer that it got pushed. I think it was smart that they pushed it.
Yeah, because wouldn't it have Beyond then come out this year, right? Had this come out in October, and and if people play Fortnite, you can kind of see like with how that delaying kind of disrupted. It seemed like what they were going to do something there because Gwen was available.
Yeah.
In that like back in October, and because it seemed like that was going to be part of a thing they were doing then, and then like Miles and Miguel didn't get added until like this past like few weeks or so. I really really enjoyed this movie a lot. I think the first one is, if I had to like choose between the two films, I think the first movie is still my favorite, just because I kind of like how that one's laid out a little bit differently, and I like Miles like really discovering his powers in that and like coming into his own in that first movie, and seeing a little bit more of like his relationship and kind of like mentorship with Peter B. Parker in that first movie, just because like Peter B. Parker was in the second film, but like not as much. So like, I guess we can just get straight into the movie from here. But yeah, so the movie came out this past week on June 2nd. And then the film was directed by Joaquin Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson, and then it was written by Phil Lord, Chris Miller, and David Callahan. And the second movie is I think just as much Gwen's movie as it is Miles's movie, because they're almost kind of like co-leads within this one, because the film like even starts off with like I don't want to say prolonged because that makes it seem like that's like a bad use of prolonged, but like and like an extended sequence of like just sticking with Gwen for like this whole kind of setting up the whole story. Like we get like this medieval kind of Da Vinci times of Leonardo da Vinci, like Vulture at the beginning, where he's like this hand drawn like parchment paper Vulture that they're fighting in the museum there. So I like that whole kind of beat up there. And the other thing I like about Gwen's universe that that you spend a lot more time in and see a lot more of in this film is just like how her universe is almost kind of like a mood ring, and it's very heavily influenced by like the mood of what characters are going through at any given time, where you see like almost every single background behind a character when it cuts back and forth is like changing.
It changes. Yeah.
Every shot between like her father, there's like sometimes there's like this weird like Picasso like expressionist kind of like shapes and stuff going on behind him. I think it's like, and I just like how beautiful like the watercolor kind of showing of that universe is, and how well that's done between like transitioning from like her universe to like say Spider-Man India's universe, which I'm gonna ask Michael if you still have it up, because I want to make sure I say his name correctly. I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah, Pavitra Prabhakar.
There you go. Or like, so I just
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Saves us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, if people are watching this on YouTube, like I just changed like the background to like Mumbai Hatton, like where he's from, and so and I like the design of his character too, like with like how like heavily influenced like his costume is, like for like the different culture there and whatnot too. I didn't even like notice this in the movie too, but like on like the bottom part of his mask, like how the spider web is like only kind of like right there. I just liked like how every variation of like all the characters in that have like their own kind of visual style to them. And I'd found it too where like with Spider-Punk, like they even did like different parts of his animation differently, where like his body was done on 3s, his guitar was done on 2s, the cutout behind him was done on 2s and 3s at different points, and then like part of it would be static and wouldn't move, and then they said they would also just break the rules whenever they wanted to, because that would make sense for for Hobie. And I've seen, at least with the movie, it seems like Miguel, Spider-Man 2099, and Hobie are like kind of like the breakout, like newer characters that are kind of focused on within this, which I think is pretty interesting. And who did you like, or who stood out the most to you of like the new kind of Spider-Verse characters that we met in this, that weren't in the first movie? Well, some of them were kind of technically in the first movie. Go with Michael and then Stanford.
Besides Pavitra, who was great and who had such a good vibe of just another easy adventure for Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
Ben Reilly was a lot of fun.
Andy Samberg is.
Yeah, that worked out really well with them making him extremely melodramatic.
Yes, absolutely, that was great.
How about you, Stanford?
Well, maybe just because they introduced her earlier in the film, but Jessica Drew I thought was totally rad.
Yeah, I really liked Janelle Monáe as her. I thought she did a really good job.
And then anyway, that was probably. But I thought they were all cool. I mean, I thought they made really interesting choices, and they all worked. But you know, I was pretty taken with the motorcycle and just got badass. Yeah, she is.
I like how she shoots webbing out of her fingertips rather than like from the wrists. Like, it's kind of an interesting kind of difference there with her for that.
And also with her eyes exposed, I thought the animation was very interesting. It was like they were using a different kind of technique, behind her goggles. Anyway,
yeah, and I also liked like how they kind of highlighted the kind of like the portal there for like whenever they were transitioning between different. I was going to say galaxies, different dimensions in the film. So I thought that was done really well. We do see like a visualization that looks like the Sacred Timeline from the MCU in there at one point too. That looks like the same kind of branching thing, which I also saw that they actually worked with Marvel Studios like quite a bit, like on like getting like trying to like coalesce their ideas about like multiverses and whatnot. So I thought that was really cool. I liked some of the surprises we got in here too, with like how they did touch on like some even like the live action universes. So like Gwen talking about
on Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah, it was like it's like, don't get me started on Doctor Strange and that dweeb of Earth 199999. So I wonder what Kevin Feige thought of that Dimensions designation, because he keeps saying that the MCU is 616. But yeah, like with that, like like Gwen talking about in every universe, Gwen. I like even the phrasing that Gwen falls for Peter Parker. And I was like, and doesn't end well for her. And I like them touching on that a bit in this and showing like the different variations of Gwen and Peter. Like they even have like, and they show like Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone's Peter and Gwen in there too. So I liked how they included the live action within all of those universes. And like they even have Spectacular Spider-Man in there, Josh Keaton's Spider-Man in there, which never happened on the show, but apparently eventually it happened to him and that Gwen too. So that's kind of a bummer. And then like, so it was cool to see the Spectacular Spider-Man there. I'm hoping that maybe in Beyond the Spider-Verse, maybe we'll get the Christopher Barnes voiced 90s Spider-Man in that one, which I'm sure we probably will, but
nice.
Speaking of Little Mermaid earlier, he did the voice of Prince Eric in the 1989 animated movie. And when I realized that, like, that wasn't even until like a few years ago. I was like, wait, Prince Eric is Spider-Man. Like, I didn't realize it was the same actor for such a long time. And then I was like, why does Prince Eric sound like 90s Peter Parker? Because it is. And who also then did the voice of Prince Charming for one of the straight-to-DVD Cinderella movies, too. So he's both Prince Eric and Prince Charming. But, yeah, so, like, this movie began... So, like, the first movie came out, like 5 years ago now. And then this film, I would have to say, like, began production shortly thereafter with... And just to touch on that too is that like the first movie did like 35 million its opening weekend. This already has made like way beyond that, and it seems like it's having a good hold on its box office too, as far as because it's not having that like big of a percentage drop each week. So like it's already grossed about 225 million in the United States and Canada. And that opening week, I'm trying to see. So yeah, the opening weekend debuted at 120.7 million. So again, like the first movie debuted at 35 million. So it just shows like how much the audience built up for this over like that 5-year period of maybe like people that maybe discounted the movie at first, like, oh, another Spider-Man movie when we already have 800 Spider-Man movies. But then they saw it and they're like, oh, okay. Because I know one of my friends had like just finally watched Into the Spider-Verse because he was going to go see Across Spider-Verse with me. And he's like, do I need to see the first one before I go see that? I was like, yes. Yes, you do. And then he ended up enjoying it a lot. So I'm glad that he finally watched it. But again, like with that movie too, like we've kind of talked about like how they do like the different animation styles with these films, and how Miles in that first film is animated on 2s for a very long period of the movie when he's web swinging until he finally kind of gets the hang of it and they change it to animating him on 3s. Then you could even do that if you had the Miles Morales video game and you can wear his suit from that first movie. So I like that they do that. Now, in this second movie, as far as the story goes, it's kind of basically what they did in the first movie by blowing up the reactor, in that it kind of essentially created this rift that where like all these things are like different people are like falling through the rifts into other universes here. And we have Miguel going around basically working as like his own, basically like the Spider-Man TVA kind of.
Yes, it's perfect. Yeah.
And which I think is like interesting. And, like I like the whole like idea of like canon events, so, like calling it a canon event too, with like this has to happen for this to happen, and like even with Miles like helping out on Mumbai Hatton to like save the captain there, that kind of creates like this whole chain of events that weren't supposed to happen because that captain was supposed to die in there, and then that basically causes what it has like a specific word. Do you remember what it is from like a Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness with the like the universes that kind of get messed up from like the anomalies with them? They had like a specific name.
Oh, incursion.
Yeah, incursion.
Incursion, yes.
Yeah, so it almost seems like that's starting to happen because it has like that same visual style starting there with like this whole like kind of opening and like swelling up into it. And I also like how they do the callback in this film too, which makes it better when you watch Into the Spider-Verse now, that the dude that's getting hit in the head with the bagel is the Spot, and which is even funnier because the bagel is a food that has a hole in it. Now, how did you guys like how they did with Jason Schwartzman as the Spot in here, and how he kind of had like a like kind of like a villain origin story kind of going on a little bit like in the background while everything else was happening, and this seems like it's going to build up more and more as we get into Beyond the Spider-Verse. What did you think of that, Michael, and then Stanford?
I thought it was great for having the villain be in I feel like a surprisingly small amount of the movie. They still managed to have him have a great effect on the story, that even though he wasn't present for a good chunk of it, you never really forgot about him. And they took a villain that easily just could have stayed the joke that he was for his first fight and made him incredibly menacing, and made him just like this massive multiversal threat out of nowhere, and it worked. It just made perfect sense.
How about you, Stanford?
Just to echo exactly what Michael's saying too, I thought that the villain was just expertly handled. Particularly, I mean, I knew going in this was a two-parter. I wasn't sure a lot of people on the screen so they sounded so surprised by the end of it. Like, people I mean, I know that maybe I'm a little hyper informed, right? Because I'm just always so interested in it. But anyway, so I thought it was perfect, and that we're really set up for some major stuff in this next film. So I like, and Jason Schwartzman. I think he's a great choice, and love the animation. I love that scene in the deli with the bodega with the ATM and all that. That was so expertly done. I thought it was very good.
Oh, and I want to correct myself from earlier. I said Janelle Monáe. It was Issa Rae for Jessica Drew. The other thing that I liked in here too, I like Daniel Kaluuya as Hobie Brown. And
he's great.
Now this was the one thing that I had spoiled for me before I saw the movie, and there wasn't even like a hashtag or any like thing that caught. Someone just straight up posted the photo of it on Twitter, and it was Donald Glover as a live action version of the Prowler looking at Miles. And I was like, oh man, I wish I hadn't had that spoiled for me. But I liked that, and I again like how they're including Donald Glover in the movie. Like in that original version that my son and I saw of Into the Spider-Verse, instead of Sunflower, they actually had Redbone playing in that.
Oh wow!
So and then they didn't end up having any Childish Gambino in the movie, so I'm assuming this is supposed to, or it could be a different one, but I'm assuming this is supposed to be the same Aaron Davis that we saw in Homecoming. It's just years later, and now he actually is the Prowler in here. But he got taken by Miguel. I would have liked to scene like that, like, because it would have been an animated Miguel Spider-Man 2099 apprehending a live action Aaron Davis in the MCU, I guess technically, because we saw kind of how that worked the other way when the Spot is kind of figuring out his powers for the first time, and his head goes into essentially Tom Hardy's Venom universe there. Which I wonder how many people realized that's what universe it was, because I mean it's not like very like clear that it is unless you know or recognize the convenience store owner in that, which if also is just seems like it's reused footage from I believe Let There Be Carnage, and it's just brightened up, like the color grading is redone on it a little bit, and just but I thought that was cool. They even encapsulated that in there too, and the obviously since Lord and Miller have done the Lego movie, they had to have the Lego Spider-Man in here too, which was animated by a 14-year-old kid that animated that entire Lego Spider-Man sequence. And the other thing I thought was funny too is that J.K. Simmons is J. Jonah Jameson. Apparently in every single universe. It's even funny too. Like if you go to like there's a like an Into the Spider-Verse like wiki. It lists J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson / J. Jonah Jameson / J. Jonah Jameson / J. Jonah Jameson / J. Jonah Jameson. Rather than just list it once.
Great.
But yeah, some of my like favorite sequences in this, which I'm not even sure like what they'll do in Beyond the Spider-Verse, because I know they had talked about that they had ideas for live action sequences in this one, but then they felt weird almost with these, so I'm not sure how much they'll do that, if at all. And the next one, it feels like they want to connect it somehow to the MCU, because like I said already, they like their imagery for like the timeline looks very similar to the Sacred timeline.
That looked intentional.
Yeah, so between that and like seeing like archive footage of like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and his Uncle Ben and Andrew Garfield and Gwen Stacy, I did notice, like, I mean, and technically Donald Glover's from Tom Holland's universe. We didn't see any version of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And they did say they did save some variations of Spider-Man for Beyond the Spider-Verse. So for like ones we didn't see in here, because obviously like we saw Spider-Cat, we saw Spider-Rex, we saw Peter Parked Car.
I love Peter Parked Car. My goodness, those gags were so great.
I liked how I don't remember what the names of those are, but like in comics, like how like they have like the little like caption to like describe.
Oh yeah.
Where like, or if you like this, go back to this issue. And they weren't even like, sometimes they weren't even on there for that long of a period of time for you to be able to read it. So there's going to be plenty of times to go back in there once it does come out for home viewing, to pause it and you can read all of like the little gags and stuff. And we know like that entire scene of all of the Spider people going after Miles, I guess took 4 years for them to animate that, which that makes sense with the amount of characters that are in it.
Yeah.
And all the different styles that all those different characters are in within that scene. I can only, So for like Spider people that didn't appear in this, that at least that you didn't notice or didn't recognize, who would you want to see show up in Beyond the Spider-Verse as like a new Spider person?
Huh.
Good question.
Yeah.
I know mine's the 90s Spider-Man, just because didn't. I mean, people will say that the like the Ultimate Spider-Man or Unlimited Spider-Man is technically supposed to be that same one from the 90s character, because that show kind of sort of is like a sequel to that, but I don't think that really counts. I think it's got to be straight up the 90s Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The show.
Ooh, I want to see Superior Spider-Man show up. I think he'd be a lot of fun.
How about you, Stanford?
You know, I want more of the dinosaur.
Spider-Rex?
Yeah.
I want to know what his canon event was.
I know, I do too. That's what you say. Can we explore that a little bit?
I saw someone share a picture of Timmy Turner from the Timmy Jimmy Power Hour like crossover things that they did for Nickelodeon, and like Timmy had like a wish where he basically looked like Spider-Man and was shooting webbing out of his butt, and they're like, what's his canon event? I think another one would be cool. Would be like the Japanese Spider-Man, like the one. I don't know if it's still on Disney Plus, but they have those. I don't remember what the name of it is, but I think it was it's called like 616, but it's like all these different specials,
yeah.
And it touches on the Japanese Spider-Man. You could do the one. That's like the Spider-Man that basically has like a Megazord in it too. There's like a whole bunch of like different stuff you could do, really.
I think they said he is coming, because I guess they had mentioned before that he was going to be in the second one, and when he didn't show up, somebody asked, I don't remember which one, Lord or Miller on Twitter about it, and they basically said that some of them got pushed back to Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Nice. You could team up with Penny that we see show back up for a little bit in here. Both have the spider robots. Now, we've already touched a little bit like on the story for this one, but I do like how this one's more of like a two-hander, where it is kind of a double like co-lead with Gwen and Miles in this. I like how with here too, like how they expand a little bit more like on Miles' story too, where that like the other thing in here too is that I've seen a lot of people point out that with his character, you'd think that he'd want to be looking to go to college for art, just because with how amazing Miles of an artist he is. But he's wanting to go to basically focus on basically physics and whatnot, because he wants to find his friends again. And then the whole thing like with that is that he chose physics instead of art, even though he clearly enjoys art more, because he wanted to have a chance of seeing Gwen and Peter again so badly, only to find out that they had the ability to visit him the whole time and chose not to. Which I like Peter B. Parker's not in here as much as he was in the first movie, but I do like what they do with him in this movie and with Mayday Parker, kind of showing like how much of an influence Miles had on him, to the point where which although that conversation can be weird too, be like, you're the reason I wanted to have kids. Like if you tell like a teenager, that's kind of might be weird. And this is also why I think there's like some time variation differences with how long of time there is on like these different universes between there. Because even if Peter went back and Mayday was conceived right away with Mary Jane, Mayday looks like she's at least like a year old, and within at least within the time frame that they, if not 2 years old, at least within the time frame of what Miles says that's been for him, of it being like a year and a half. I don't think that would give enough time for like how old Mayday is supposed to be. But I liked all the stuff with Peter B. Parker in here too, and like how he's in full kind of like Spider Dad mode like the entire time.
It's
like
so
he
great.
has the robe on,
wearing the robe
time.
And yeah.
And I even like near like the end where like Mayday like pulls down like her. I thought that was great with her, and they used her really well too. I don't know. I just really liked all of that stuff with Peter again in here. Now, how did you guys like how they did with Miguel? And like, technically the Spot is the villain, but Miguel is more, I guess, almost technically the prime antagonist of the movie. So how did you like the framing of that, of using Miguel as more the antagonist than the Spot really was in the movie for this film? And then do you think possibly like in that third movie they'll kind of recontextualize a little bit more, or maybe the same way like this one had Gwen as like a co-lead with Miles, maybe like the third one will kind of pick up like that same way that it did with like Gwen in here, but like they start like that third movie with kind of giving a little bit more of like a backstory and framing for Miguel for why he's doing what he's doing in the second movie. What do you guys think? Stanford and Michael.
I like how they used Miguel a lot in the story for the most part. I thought Oscar Isaac was a great choice. He's just such a good actor, you know, and I thought he really, I thought his vocal performance was excellent. I'd say the only, and this isn't necessarily Miguel per se, the only issue that I really had with the movie, and I can't even say it's an issue, it's just I thought, and again in my brain, I was still also knowing that this is a two-parter, and there was a lot. They had a lot of exposition. They had to explain stuff, you know, that was going to be happening. And so I really don't fault the filmmakers. However, I got really restless during Act 2 when there was all that explanation about the disruption of Canada, you know, the canon event, and I know how important it was. But also two things were going on. So the first time I saw it, I was sitting on the aisle, and there was just starting about that point, and you know, during Act 2 of the film, there was this maybe 6-year-old girl, and her adults were letting her go up and down the stairs, and it was stadium seating, like the whole freaking movie, like for the rest of the movie. This little girl was just going up and down the stairs, and just right by me. And then one of her adults, I mean, again, I don't know, because they were sitting way behind. They were sitting like almost, I think, on the back row, it seemed like. And I promise my story is a point. But her adult was going down the stairs with her. And then like I'm not kidding you, 4 times in a row, he tripped on the same stair, right? Which was right by my seat. And I was just like, that was driving me crazy. So I was a little restless with the movie, as was this little girl who they just let kind of run uncontrollably with their tripping adults, you know. So I was really frustrated. Thankfully, you know, things really pick up when all the spider people start going after Miles, and then I can just focus more on the movie and the action rather than this little girl who was nonstop. Then I got to tell you, the second time I saw it, and maybe I was a little tired, I fell asleep during that part.
Okay.
And that's the exact same part. And then I woke up, and then right when the spider people were starting, thought, well, I guess maybe I need to see it again, or just realize, you know, that part is just not meant for me. I don't know how to word it. So I don't fault it necessarily on, you know, on Miguel or on anybody, but it's just my experience, and that's and so you know, everybody's saying this is the best movie ever made, and for me, it's not, but it's fantastic. I love it, but I had some issues, and maybe I'm just going to blame that child and the tripping dad or whoever he was.
Yeah, sometimes your experience at the theater can affect.
It can affect
your entire just viewing of the movie.
Some person's on their cell phone the whole time, you know, or something, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, it's crazy.
How about you, Michael?
I loved him. I thought he was great. I like that Peter B. Parker points out that he's like the only unfunny Spider-Man. Yeah, and he really
So
worked
good.
as the antagonist, and finding out his motivations for not only being so upset that Miles, you know, messed something up and possibly cause an incursion, but that Miles shouldn't have existed as Spider-Man in the first place, was, I thought, like a great, I guess you can call it a twist. but yeah, it was great, and it made him a fantastic antagonist, especially because he is a Spider-Man, and those couple times when he kept saying like, "We are the good guys," like maybe if he says it enough times, he'll believe it. But yeah, I loved him.
Nice. And I guess kind of segueing from that into like the last bit of what we'll talk about before we close out for this episode was with Miles, or at least the one that we've come to know from Earth 1610, not wasn't meant to be Spider-Man, because the spider that bit him was from the Earth 42. Now, with this, did that twist with like where Miles shows up? Did that surprise either of you, or were you paying close enough attention where that, like with that whole sequence there, that didn't surprise you when he showed up on Earth 42?
It didn't surprise me once they got on the rooftop and you could tell that Uncle Aaron was suspicious of him.
Yeah.
Especially when you saw a prowler attack him, and it obviously wasn't him.
How about you, Stanford?
I thought it was a pretty good twist, but yeah, there were those visual clues that I thought something's amiss.
Yeah.
And sure enough.
Yeah. So like the first thing, like on the computer, like as he's like opening the portal and it reads his blood and it says Earth 42 there, I was like, oh, he's gonna get sent not to his world, but he doesn't know that. And then I thought maybe, I was like, oh, okay, maybe he still did get sent back to where he's supposed to go. And then I liked how they were cutting back and forth there between Gwen and him, like kind of being like within the same framing, and you're like, are they in the same place? Are they not? And then the whole thing there, I liked with Gwen basically finally, like, to go back to her at the beginning of the movie where she puts a band together, which is basically, we get Spider-Man India from this movie. We get what was it? Yeah, and then basically everybody from the first movie with like Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Ham, Penny Parker. I don't think Spider-Punk was there. Was he with them? I don't think.
I remember it.
I think it was primarily basically just everybody from that first movie. So it was like Peter B. Parker, Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Ham,
Penny,
and Spider-Bite was there.
Oh, Spider-Bite, and then Spider-Man India. So I think maybe Spider-Punk will show up later, but it doesn't seem like he would really be part of a group or a coalesced kind of like thing coming together for something. But I liked how like that whole like group was together again there. So
that was a great final shot. It's just just to get you so stoked for the next movie.
Yeah. And then, so I mean, obviously we'll hear some John Mulaney and Nicolas Cage again in the third movie, and then here too, like with Miles on Earth 42. I thought this was interesting too. Like, there's that shot though too where Aaron punches like the punching bag, and it has like this whole like visual like color like exploding out the other side of the bag. I was like, did he just like kill Miles? Like punch his face and like it exploded him. But then like they cut back to me, he's there, and it's very subtle. But I liked that in this shot, as like they're like showing you that the prowler of Earth 42, and the kind of like that Earth 42 is just kind of like gone to crap because it doesn't have a Spider-Man. And apparently doesn't have any other kind of superheroes at all on that planet. Is that with the way that our Miles of Earth 1610 is tied to the bag, it's a callback to the way that Peter B. Parker is tied up in that first movie. And he's like, don't watch the face, always watch the hands. And like
Yeah.
in that shot, he's doing the same thing that Peter was doing in that first movie, and you can see him charging up there again and going back to like what Hobie was showing earlier in the movie with like the spread the bite like through like the palm that way, so it actually spreads the power out more. Which, side note to that, some people have a theory that Spider-Punk also has like the electric kind of powers too, and that's how he's powering his guitar and using it like for, and kind of knew to give Miles that like tip with it. But I like kind of where it leaves it here with like Miles getting ready to basically escape from that situation. And then you don't really know what's going to happen next too, because is Miles going to have to kick his own butt? And it seemed like he could be pretty evenly matched, because like when he was fighting Aaron in the first movie as the Prowler, it wasn't like he could just like straight up take him out right away. Granted, he was like freshly Spider-Man in that movie, and he's been Spider-Man a little bit longer now, but it should be interesting to see how this goes. I think I saw that Lord Miller said something about like where Miles isn't just going to abandon this dimension. He's going to try to, since he's almost kind of at fault for why this Earth or dimension is the way that it is, because that spider didn't bite this Miles, so that Miles would become Spider-Man. That he feels some sort of like obligation to helping that dimension out before we would like peace out and back to wherever he's going to be. So I'm curious to see what'll happen there. And then I guess as we close out here, what do you guys think will happen, or what would you like to happen in Beyond the Spider-Verse as we start to wrap up this episode? Michael and then Stanford.
I don't know what I really expect to happen, besides Miles getting home, and hopefully, him and Gwen are able to, I don't know, get together or find a way where they can, relatively or regularly see each other. Other than that, I don't really know what my expectations are for it.
How about you, Stanford?
So, I mean, my hope is that they can prevent Miles' dad from dying. In Earth 1610, right? But I guess we'll see, and then hopefully, for Miles and Gwen to hook up, and then beyond that, we're just gonna see. I think we're going to be in for a real wild ride, and it's going to be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picturing the end of No Way Home times 1,000.
Yeah. Good way to put it, Mark.
Yeah, we're just gonna we had that hero shot of like Peter 1, 2, and 3 like landing on the Statue of Liberty, where I think there's gonna be some kind of thing in this next movie where like all of them have to team up against like the Spot with like whatever he ends up doing in this next film. And there's gonna be like, I feel like there's gonna be like this huge, it's gonna have to be like this like a huge all out sequence of like all of the Spider characters like working together, kind of the same way we saw like the three of them in No Way Home, like playing off of one another's like webs going like up in that. I feel like if anyone can do it, like the team that has been doing these movies can put together a cohesive sequence that is going to feel like if you mixed No Way Home with the end of Endgame, but instead of all the MCU characters, it's all Spider characters. And I feel like something with that movie maybe like leads into, because since it's Sony, I feel like maybe they'll have to they'll like lead it into something with like that Madam Web movie that they're doing, so that kind of coalesces with like this whole Spider-Verse that they've created, because that would actually make sense with somehow Madam Web getting involved with like all of the Spider-Verse shenanigans that have happened in these past two movies, and by that third movie. So I think that could be interesting. I think we'll probably see the 3 live action Spider-Man Peter Parker's in that too, probably. I don't know, and they said that it's supposed to be the end of like this Miles's like story for that too, and with how well done the first and second movie are, I have high hopes that like this one will thoroughly land on its feet and make the series of movies like one of the best trilogies, like with the best arcs that have been created, and just a good showcase for different forms of animation in general. So I'm hopeful for like a very both personal as well as epic conclusion to this version of Miles's story. And I think, at least from what we've seen so far, there's not really too much of a reason to doubt that that's possible to happen for the last movie. So hopefully the third movie still comes out in March of next year. Who's to say that it might not get delayed? Between apparently Haley Steinfeld hasn't recorded any dialogue yet.
Yeah,
for that,
I saw that.
which seems very
You
weird.
sent that to me, Mark. Yeah,
they unless they just have all temp dialogue in the movie right now, that feels very weird that they haven't recorded any dialogue whatsoever. I was like, really? The movie comes out in 9 months. A baby could be conceived right now for Across the Spider-Verse and be born by the time Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out. And then you could call the baby Mayday Parker.
I do want to say, if it does get delayed, because this movie was delayed, we wouldn't have gotten that Lego sequence if it weren't, because that 14-year-old's Spider-Verse trailer came out like 5 months ago with that trailer, and it was between that time and the movie releasing that they decided to add a Lego sequence and ask him to do it. So he did it over like spring break and after homework. So like, besides the fact that it's like wildly impressive that a 14-year-old was able to animate that entire thing on his own. It was done like weeks before the movie was about to release.
That's crazy.
So who knows if anything else could come of another delay, but I'm still hoping it's not.
Yeah. And I did like how Miguel called called that Spider-Man one of their bests. Now I just want a Lego Spider-Man movie, like we got a Lego Batman movie.
Yeah.
Just give us a Lego Spider-Man movie. But yeah, I think that'll do it for our episode talking about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We're all eagerly anticipating Beyond the Spider-Verse for whether that comes out in March of 2024 or whenever it may be. We shall see. But don't forget, you can follow us individually on Twitter. All that information will be in the show notes for myself and Stanford. And then you can find the show on Facebook and Instagram at Animation Fascination, and Twitter at Animated Podcast. You can email us if you want to at animationfascinationpodcast@gmail.com, and visit our site for all of the episodes we've had, as well as where you can get merch if you'd like to as well. And then Trent Factor edits our episodes. And then where can they find you, Michael?
You can find me at Instagram at Tirona M.
I'll put that in the show notes as well too, so people can check you out. But I'm Mark Rivert. So for myself, Stanford Clark, and our guest Michael Tirona, thank you for listening, and make sure to tune in again next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.